Happy Bookstore Romance Day. What do you say we start this morning out with me making way too much noise with this iced coffee I'm finishing before heading out the door? Great, sounds like a plan. Okay, so Romance Bookstore Day. This year is notably different from the past couple of years because, drumroll, it's not that different. It's different in that we have a romance bookstore or a dedicated romance bookstore in the city proper now that we didn't have last year. The last chapter opened like a week or two after Bookstore Romance Day. I keep flipping back and forth between Bookstore Romance Day and Romance Bookstore Day, but it's Bookstore Romance Day in that it is celebrating romance in all bookstores, not just dedicated romance bookstores, though we are seeing a lot more of those the last couple years, as we've mentioned before. So because of that, I'm hoping for a little bit more frivolity today. I'm going to go to the last chapter. I can already feel like my adrenaline rising because I know they have gift bags for the first couple hundred people that spend money this morning, but I went to their opening last year and I spent hours in line and it was packed, to the point, and I think I've mentioned this before, where I was toward the end of the block near where the Starbucks is, if you're in Chicago and that reference means anything to you. And a woman was coming out of the Starbucks and chatting up the line and just asking us genuinely what we were there for. And when we said that it was a bookstore opening, she got really excited and she's like, how did you hear about it? How do we get this kind of support and turnout for small businesses in our communities? And that is exciting in and of itself. Anyway, it was busy. And it's been busy every time I've gone. I went on Indie Bookstore Day. I know that was a whole adventure, but it was busy and there were activities, and it is a very small space when thinking about the traffic that comes through it. But there's a not so secret part of me that still wants to see if I can get the goodies. And I, of course, want to observe and celebrate not Independent Bookstore Day, Bookstore Romance Day. And so do I need to go buy books? No, but do I ever? Really? No. It is a busy day for me though. I'm gonna slip this in the morning and then I'm going to go shopping with a friend and then we have a concert tonight. So maybe I will take you along for some more of that in terms of a more vloggy style if I can figure that out. Or maybe we'll just come back with a debrief and a haul. We'll have that either way, but I am very excited about today. I am going to take my Love Sweet Arrow tote bag, which is the romance bookstore in Tinley Park, which I have never actually been to the physical location of, but they come to Printers Row Lit Fest every year, which is also coming up, and I always spend a good deal of money with them because their selection and their curation is immaculate. I really do want to get to their store. It just requires a drive, and me and my friends just haven't made the logistics of that work within our schedules, but they always bring such a great selection to just Printers Row, so I can only imagine what their storefront looks like. And they always feature a really wide selection of romance and the romance subgenres. And I know that I have come to you all pretty frequently with commentary about kind of the direction romance is going in and how I feel as a romance reader in the current moment. So yeah, there is a lot there. Now, it is an overcast day. There is a chance of rain. I am going to be walking this, so I will take my umbrella. I am debating what I'm going to listen to as I walk. Ideally, I would listen to my audiobook that you can't, the screen is too bright. I'm listening to The Truth According to Ember, but realistically, I know that I will probably put on either Barnes Courtney or The Struts because that is who I am seeing tonight for my concert. This will be my third year in a row seeing Barnes Courtney and my second year in a row seeing The Struts, so I am very excited and also anticipating spending a lot of money at the concert because I will want to get a t-shirt for both artists because I'm kind of replenishing t-shirts via concert shirts. And if the Struts have a vinyl, I will probably pick that up. I probably won't from Barnes Courtney because the one I want isn't coming out until September. This is irrelevant. It's Romance Bookstore Day. So let's get going and let's go to the bookstore. And in the interim, tell me what you got up to on Romance Bookstore Day, since this will be in the future for all of us. And also, what did you pick up? What are your current romance reading tastes? Well, that didn't really go at all according to plan. Now, I had a fantastic Bookstore Romance Day and concert after where I did indeed buy the signed vinyl. Well, I bought a vinyl. I wasn't expecting to buy a signed vinyl. I got up to the counter. I said, I think I'll get that after the show. The person working the merch stand said, it will not be here after the show. If you want it, you gotta get it now. It was a standing room only concert. I had to cradle the vinyl between my feet over the entire course of the show, but I successfully did that and got it home. So a very successful Saturday. Sunday is where we ran into the problems. I expected to wake up, get ready to tell you all how my day went, get ready for the week ahead. Instead, as you probably saw on my community tab, I woke up to the news that my grandmother had passed. So it has been a long, kind of emotionally devastating week for me, and I don't want to pass that on to you. If you have been with me for a second, you know, even though I haven't talked about it a whole lot, so maybe you don't, this is the third major loss I've experienced within about 2 years in the same really close-knit family. So it's hard. At the same time, my grandma was 97. She lived a long, full, beautiful life. And toward the end, my grandma wasn't a reader until the end. She started to lose her eyesight, and in effort to kind of find things to fill her time, she discovered audiobooks. And so we had gotten her, or she had a boombox, you know, an original boombox. And so the library started to bring her books on CD. And so our tastes were vastly different. She was a closed-door romance reader, which I think is fine. When we're talking about books, I don't know that I would have liked to talk about open-door romance with my grandma, but she found a lot of joy in that toward the end, and I am very grateful not only for how my hometown library took care of her, and I mentioned this in my community post, and how that is indicative of how they take care of the community and the importance of libraries. It's just one small illustration of how important libraries are and how libraries serve their community. But it also just meant a lot to me to have that bonding thing with my grandma, to be able to talk to her about what she was reading. We didn't ever really go super in depth, and we didn't talk books to the level that we talk books here, but it was another way for us to connect. And in some ways, it kind of feels fitting and like this kind of full circle cosmic moment in whatever way you think of it, because it was the day after Romance Bookstore Day, and romances kind of helped her and kept her company toward the end. Now, I will say, she read a lot of Amish romance, which was very big when I was in high school, and I haven't really seen a whole lot of since. And when I was talking to the librarians when they came through for the visitation, seems like they were special ordering these things in for her. So also there's going to be a whole lot of books on CD that kind of live on in the library collection in her memory, which is something really joyful to think about as well. But it's kind of funny because it is the one romance subgenre that I personally really have complicated, kind of messy feelings about, but it brought her a lot of joy. And with that, let's kind of move on to the romance of it all and the joy of it all and the things that are bringing me a lot of joy in my reading life, though I have not read any of these books. It would have been great to say, and I went home and I read all of these books over the course of last week, but that would be a lie. I did not even finish the book I'm in the middle of that I have been enjoying that I took home with me. However, I did get to the last chapter. Now, I did make a mistake in that, you know, when we last left, I was worried about getting the tote bag of goodies. Now, spoiler alert, that you may or may not have saw on the thumbnail, because I don't know how that's going to end up yet. I did get the tote bag. However, I looked up the hours before going over, and it said, well, the last chapter opened at 10, but then I saw on their Instagram that they mentioned 11 for Bookstore Romance Day, so I thought that meant they were opening an hour later, which was silly in retrospect. However, I think that that just meant when some of the extra goodies were showing up, because I was looking at stories from the bookstore on the way to the bookstore, because I am that kind of nerd, and I was seeing people already going in, and I had accepted my fate that I wasn't going to get a tote bag, but I did indeed. Now, I didn't get a whole lot of footage inside because it was packed, and I have complicated feelings about filming in public that probably just comes down to me not liking to be noticed. But my tennis shoes did make it into a reel posted by the last chapter, so I have proof that I was there if you believe me that those were my shoes. However, when I got in, I kind of had to wait in line to shop, so it was a kind of supermarket sweep experience in some ways, especially because I was kind of hurrying up and hurrying through to be able to meet my friend to hang out the rest of the day. And so I didn't have like time to go back to different sections, and I didn't shop a whole lot toward the beginning because I wanted to hit up any historical romance they had, which is usually in the back corner, and they did have a small selection, and we'll get into that. It kind of just rotates by whatever's there. It is a bummer because they do have section indicators at the top of the sections, and there isn't one for historical romance. That being said, I've been seeing a lot of conversation recently about like bookstores and bookstores that support indie authors and people wanting to support, or open bookstores that support indie authors, and I will give the last chapter this 100%. They are incredibly supportive of indie authors and foster that community and build that community with readers in a really exciting way, and it's something that I haven't fully utilized or tapped into, and it's probably just comes down to it being new to me and me still being shy about it, but it is great to see that. But I went in kind of with an idea of what I wanted in terms of at least one of the books. You know what? Before we continue this, I need to throw my hair up. It is hot. It was gorgeous last week. All of last week, my parents had their windows all open. The house was open all week. It was beautiful. I come back into this city, it's 90 degrees. What is that about? Anyway, give me one moment. Okay, we're back, and that is going to be what that is going to be. I also am having that moment where I'm sitting down and talking to you all, where I'm like, have I talked to anybody today? Which sounds sadder out loud than it is. So that being said, let's go through the books that I got. I will show you some of the goodies. It's mostly like bookmarks and stickers and things, and I'm never going to complain about getting some free bookmarks, though my heart will always and forever belong first and foremost to the Roscoe Books bookmark, which I think is the elite Chicago bookstore bookmark. But if you are in Chicago and you want to fight with me in the comments about that, feel free. So I did at least have a couple of conversations in line with the women around me. The woman behind me and I were both shopping the historical romance section and had, you know, some sadness over the fact that it wasn't a bigger section, and that being how we found romance. You've heard all of this before. However, of course, we both still found a lot of books from various sections throughout the bookstore. And then I was also talking to the woman who became behind me later, because we kind of shuffled around a little bit as we were shopping the different sections, and just talking about how we were both meeting up with friends later that day who would not be interested or were not interested in coming out with us to romance bookstores. So we were kind of flying solo. So it was a nice kind of communal atmosphere in that. So my final haul, only one of which I went in knowing I wanted to grab, is thus. This book, the book I knew I wanted to grab, just talked about in the last anticipated releases for August, because it is August. That's how time works, although August is almost over. Anyway, the woman behind me and I both grabbed this when I was on the one side of the new releases table, because it's just kind of a big U that the line worked through. By the time I got to the other side, there was only one copy of this back, and I knew I wanted it because I saw them post it, and it had this art print in it that is really cute and really does seem to support the vampire theory. Not that, you know, it was an opaque theory. I don't know if that was correct wording, but you are getting me off of an emotionally tempestuous week, so who knows what you're really getting. I will say, in terms of young adult, because this is young adult, I thought it was adult, I think, but it is young adult, at least according to what I am seeing here is Source Books Fire, which I think is YA. Everything on it looks YA, though I will admit that a lot of the visual indicators, or even not visual indicators, that I have historically used to differentiate between YA and adult are becoming a little bit blurred, and I usually know my stuff on this, and making me kind of question some of the things I think of as identifiers, including I picked up the new Ava Reed Lady Macbeth at the library, and it is a physical size that makes me think of young adult within hardcover, and so it made me question. I was like, oh, is this young adult? So these like little indicators that we think about, which also I think goes into the conversation that we have around romance book covers and what book covers communicate to readers and what we expect from those books based on their covers and the cycles of covers and all of that. If you have not listened to the Fated Mates cover discussion, they have a really great discussion kind of looking at, or episode I should say, looking at the kind of history of romance covers, especially kind of tracing back to the original, or not original, but the bodice rippers that historical romance especially really gets associated with, even as the covers have evolved. And we'll talk about covers a little bit more, but it made me think, if A Tempest of Tea, which we talked about earlier this year, was Six of Crows with vampires, this, at least according to the blurb, is making me think The Diviners with vampires. Now, do not get distracted by the last book in the Diviner series that is clearly unfinished above my head. You can't even see that. It's not even there. I don't know what you're talking about. But based on the blurb, and again, we talked about this briefly already, but I didn't read the blurb, and, you know, just put up with my reading. At night in Harlem, the jazz clubs come to life, and death waits in the dark. It's 1926, and reapers are growing stronger everywhere. Created centuries ago by cruel medical experiments, these once human vampires are driven to attack without mercy. Those who protect the city from them hold more power than even the organized criminals who run the nightclubs. As the reluctant heir to her father's reaper hunting empire, Elise Saint knows that the Harlem Reapers want her dead. Among them is Layla Quinn, who lost her parents, the protection of the Saints, and her humanity the night she was turned into a reaper. And she'll never forget how Elise Saint betrayed her. A wave of mysterious killings shocks the city, forcing Elise and Layla to work together to find out if some reapers are turning human again, or becoming even deadlier. As their investigation takes them from glittering parties to gangster underworlds, the two must confront their complicated feelings for each other. For a new kind of evil is on the rise, one that will destroy reapers and humans alike if they don't stop it. So that sounds wonderful, atmospheric, a really interesting exploration of history and the setting of that, really giving rise to a lot of possibility, especially as we kind of look at this era as being one of the heights of spiritualism, or spiritualism being popular. So the supernatural being at the forefront makes total sense, and I'm very, very excited to see how it's explored here. Additionally, because the blurb really mentions Elise and Layla, were those the correct? Yes. Elise and Layla. I didn't have, this art print gives me sense that there is more of an ensemble cast here than I was expecting, so that is exciting. So definitely anticipating this one, and it is going to be a good early fall read, I think. And then I picked up another romance we talked about and an anticipated read earlier this year, The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields. Now, I can't remember, I think this may have been in LGBTQIA+ romance in that section. However, it also feels very cozy and fantastical, so without having read it yet, makes me think it may be up the alley of someone who likes a very secret society of irregular witches, of which we are getting another book from that author later this fall, so good news there as well. But the Honey Witch is cursed to never find true love. But when she meets a young woman who doesn't believe in magic, she dares to hope for more. Marigold Claude has always preferred the company of meadow spirits to the suitors who've tried to woo her. So when her grandmother whisks her away to the tiny isle of Innisfree with an offer to train her as the next Honey Witch, she accepts immediately. But her newfound magic and independence come with a price. No one can fall in love with the Honey Witch. Then Lottie Burke, a notoriously grumpy skeptic, shows up on her doorstep, and Marigold can't resist the challenge to prove to her that magic is real, even at the risk of losing her home and her heart. When I first read the blurb, I thought that said grumpy skelky. which would have been a completely different story, but also just as magical. So very interested to see what this is. If it is more just that kind of curse and getting over that curse, if the curse is kind of representative, a stand-in, you know, a good metaphorical curse. We love a good metaphorical curse. How cozy it is, if it's kind of pushing through on vibes versus plot. I don't know, we'll see. But I am excited to see what that will be. Also, is that a bee? It looks like a bee on the back. I mean, I guess it could be well, I guess there's a bee I guess it's on the front too. But I am very attuned to all of the bees in romance right now. Well, not right now. The ones I've read are, of course, Bridgerton. And then, which Lisa Kleypas is it? Remind me below which Lisa Kleypas has the bees. I think it's Cam's book. Is it Cam's book? But before we get into all of that, the newest by Laura Lee Girk, Lady Scandal, which we did discuss earlier this year and anticipated. It says, Delia Stratton is an unconventional woman. While other ladies learned proper decorum at finishing school, she composed naughty limericks and admired the gardener's muscular legs. So naturally, when she's widowed for the third time, she does the unthinkable. She gets a job. Planning events for the Savoy Hotel is perfect for someone with her skills, but her dream career turns into a nightmare when she's forced to work with the most annoying and gorgeous man she's ever met. Hotel magnate Simon Hayden. We love a magnate named Simon in the romance world, the historical romance world. Getting back to the blurb. Knows something fishy is going on at the Savoy. The hotel is constantly busy, yet the book says it's in the red. The books say it's in the red. He's determined to root out the fraud and its perpetrators, and that means spending time with one of the most likely suspects, the delectable, infuriating Lady Stratham. She's definitely getting in his way and under his skin, and he can't decide whether to fire her or kiss her until she stops arguing. But when the sparks between them flare into flame, Simon must choose between his love for Delia and his duty to the hotel. Will his choice bring them together or tear them apart? Which does make you wonder if she is behind the reason the hotel's not doing so well. Also of note, in the little blurb at the top, it says, Grumpy meets Sunshine in this charming tale featuring a haughty businessman and the headstrong event planner who steals his heart. So the little tagline, which I just wanted to point out because we are playing with the trope of Grumpy meets Sunshine, and there's been a lot of discussion about tropes lately and kind of the tropification of books, of romance. I'm not wading into that too deeply. However, I do think it's important to recognize that tropes serve the story. So tropes are marketing in some ways, but here we have a trope that we're exploring or that we're marketing in Grumpy Meets Sunshine, but we also have this whole blurb that tells us what the book is about. However, this book also offers us another opportunity to kind of do a state of affairs of modern romance without ever reading the book. It's not about the contents of the book right now in this analysis. What do you notice when you look at this book? You're probably going immediately to the fact that there is a woman standing away looking into the distance, the back of a woman, which usually we only get in World War II historical. Usually in our historical romance, she would be like a side profile, her head would be cut off. This is gross generalization. However, I picked this up, I put it in my pile, and then I went, wait a minute. This is a 2024 release. It's a historical romance, and this is a trade paperback. I had just seen recently a TikTok from, I think it was Rebecca Weatherspoon, who said, bring back the mass market. And I feel like this is evidence that that needs to be expedited, because I knew that they were trying to kill the mass market. I knew that. However, so far there were still or have still been authors, especially those I consider kind of anchor authors in historical romance. I'm talking the Lisa Kleypas, I'm talking the Sarah MacLean, I'm talking the Tessa Dare, who have stayed in mass market. Now, I do anticipate this is going to be changing because Sarah MacLean is coming out with a romance novel next year that is not a historical romance. Yes, we are going to have to continue to wait for Duchess's book, but what I am anticipating with that book is that it will not be released in mass market like her historicals have continued to be released. So it's just something I'm keeping my eye on, and Girk is an author that historically has been to my purview. Now, granted, she has always been a library author for me, not an auto-buy author. However, again, I was kind of just buying any of the historical romances that I hadn't read because the selection was kind of limited. I am genuinely interested in this book because I featured it, and I want to prove that historical romance sells in the store. So whatever. Also, I do want to give credit. One, I love the owner of that store and all of the staff that I've interacted with in that store. They're so nice. They do genuinely stock what people are interested in if they reach out and express interest. I know when they were kind of crowdsourcing ideas for what they wanted to stock last year after they first opened, they stocked a lot of the historical romance authors that I had suggested, friends had suggested, and so it's definitely been there. Additionally, I had another thought. Oh, things were already really picked over just less than an hour to about an hour after they opened by the time I kind of wound through the line, right? So they had already sold a lot of books. There was a lot of empty shelf space. It felt like Indie Bookstore Day. Remember maybe how I talked about last year, we ended at Sandmeyer's, which you may see again in the near future because Printers Row is coming up. However, when we ended or went to Sandmeyer's toward the end of the day last year for Indie Bookstore Day, it was decimated in some ways. There was so much empty shelf space, and it felt very similar to that. Or like the story I told of picking up This Ravenous Fate, and by the time I'd wound around to the other side of the table, it was the last copy on the table, and that was by like 11:30 at the latest. So, you know, books were selling. I can't really know what is in stock on a day-to-day basis by that day. And also, I do accept and recognize that historical romance just isn't the hottest romance subgenre right now. As much as that saddens me, it is the facts. I do really wonder how bad publishers have fumbled the bag on that, in the sense that we have Bridgerton right there, and there are so many clear opportunities to kind of leverage that and kind of sell more books, and they are doing it, Avon in particular, since Avon is the publisher of Bridgerton, by putting Julia Quinn blurbs on books. However, and I've mentioned this before too, Julia Quinn books, or blurbs on books, have been a staple for a long time. They've been there for readers like me, but this has a Julia Quinn blurb on it. Now, that is interesting because this is out of Hachette. This isn't an Avon. Okay, that is interesting. So she just must be working cross publishers now for the sake of historical romance, because I didn't know, granted, I don't know the rules. I don't remember clocking her blurbs on something outside of an Avon romance other than this. So I will have to pay more attention. Now, talking about our kind of anchor authors in historical romance, I wanted to pick up what I could from authors that are kind of go-tos. For me, though I have not read their entire canon, I did kind of break my own rules a little bit because the spine of this is broken a little bit. And then I reminded myself that it's okay. The world isn't going to end because it was the only copy. And I like a broken spine from the library, so it's okay if my own spine is broken. So here we have, I did want to get the last of the Spindle Cove series from Tessa Dare because I have not read the last one yet, but they didn't have it. They only had the first two, which I have read and own one up. So I got Romancing the Duke because I have not read this one either. This is an Ugly Duckling retelling, I believe. I know I've read at least one of the other retellings in this series. I think it's The Castles Ever After. Yeah, because it says it very clearly right on the book. I think I've read The Beauty and the Beast, but it's been a long time, and I don't know if I've read any of the others. But this might be a good series to get your eyes on if you are kind of chomping at the bit for Bridgerton Season 4, which is going to be a long time coming, and we will circle back to sometime soon if you're interested in kind of talking and kind of gathering our thoughts leaping into Season 4 with Bridgerton, similar to how we did with Season 3 of Bridgerton. Let me know below. Anyway, babbling aside, let's read the blurb of this real quick. It says, in the first in Tessa Dare's captivating Castles Ever After series, a mysterious fortress is the setting for an unlikely love. As the daughter of a famed author, Isolde Ophelia Goodnight grew up on tales of brave knights and fair maidens. She never doubted romance would be in her future, too. The storybooks offered endless possibilities. As she grew older, Izzy crossed them off, one by one. Ugly Duckling turned swan? Abducted by handsome highwaymen? rescued from a drudgery by a charming prince. Not from a drudgery, from drudgery. There's a line through it. It obscured my vision there for a bit. No, no, and Now Izzy's given up yearning for romance. She'll settle for a roof over her head. What fairy tales are left over for an impoverished 26-year-old woman who's never even been kissed? This one. So this could end up being another Wallflower romance entry. Will it prove to be a closer aligned book than the one I picked for Tessa Dare, from Tessa Dare for the Wallflower Reading Rex video? I guess we'll both have to find out. And then finally, I bought Worth Any Price by Lisa Kleypas. We did also have a discussion in line, I did, with the woman behind me as we were kind of looking over the historical romance about Lisa Kleypas, because the Ravenel series finished the year before last, I want to say, or was it last year? But to have the first year or two without a Kleypas book in a long time. The Ravenel series went on for a long time when we're used to getting one a year, and now with the kind of conventions and expectations of romance output kind of expediting, I do want to have a conversation a little bit more in depth about that in relation to the publishing schedule and expectations and the kind of ties to overconsumption I see there, not from purchasing behaviors. However, we are talking about Romance Bookstore Day, and so I still have not read Kleypas's entire canon. I read earlier this year in my March Madness bracket for Mass Market Madness, I read one of the older Kleypas titles I had not read yet. And yes, I am going to continue to just wave this book around with no regard in a way that I am sure is going to very much annoy myself when it comes to editing. But this is from the Bow Street Runners series, or Bow Street. Now, I will say, and I had a brief conversation about this in line as well, this is clearly a repackaged book. We know that historical romance, especially if it stays in publication, which is not a guarantee, is apt to get repackaged. I will say, I don't know how I feel about this repackaging. This feels like a Bridgerton repackage. It says it was repackaged, well, it says, no, that's when the excerpt from Devil in Disguise, which is the last of the Ravenel series, so that gives us a good indication, I guess. Has it been that long? This first was copyrighted in 2003, but I'm not finding the copyright of the image. But it kind of looks like the repackaging of the Bridgerton books that aren't the show tie-in covers. Though I have beef with those as well, mostly because all of the indie bookstores that carry them, when I am feeling inclined to just pick one up, have the trade copies, and I don't want a trade paperback. I want a mass market for Bridgerton, and so then I just don't pick it up because I don't really like the covers either. It's just more of a convenience thing. So here I am, having read the series multiple times, having a lot of videos talking about the series, but confession, I currently don't own the entire series. So I guess I need to get on that, but I also kind of want the old covers. Anyway, cover aside, because we're not judging the book by its cover, though I think that in today's day and age, there is something to be said about that. But we know Lisa Kleypas. I know Lisa Kleypas. Well, it's not my favorite packaging of Lisa Kleypas. Let's see what the meat and potatoes of this is, because I am just babbling for real now. New York Times bestseller Lisa Kleypas delights in the third book in the Bow Street Runners series, an enthralling and steamy romance about a man tasked with finding a runaway bride, but when he finds her, will he be able to keep his feelings in check? Nick Gentry, the most seductive and dangerous man in England, has been sent to find Charlotte Howard, a runaway bride who has disappeared without a trace. But when he finds her, Nick is stunned by the intensity of his attraction to the elusive young woman whose adventurous spirit matches his own. Determined to escape a forced marriage to a man who will destroy her, that sounds incredibly Lisa Kleypas, as an unasked for aside, Charlotte agrees to an audacious bargain. She will become Nick Gentry's bride. So feeling very Devil in Winter here. But soon she discovers that Nick has secrets of his own, and it will take all her wits and stubborn will to tame his tormented soul. In the desperate quest to protect Charlotte from the diabolical aristocrat who threatens her, one thing becomes clear: to save the woman he loves, Nick will take any risk and pay any price. So this sounds like it has most everything I love in a Kleypas. And a marriage of convenience, sparring amidst mutual attraction, a tortured hero, and an outside antagonist. Listen, if you do not like a third act breakup, I'm not promising there will not be a third act breakup, but you may just like an outside antagonist. If you like Ali Hazelwood books in contemporaries, you may just like an outside antagonist. Consider it. If you like Ali Hazelwood, I feel like you would very much enjoy historical fiction, especially something in the vein of Lisa Kleypas or Sarah MacLean, and I definitely think you should give it a try. Man, has my collar been like that the whole time? And it wouldn't be the first time that I got through an entire video and something is just kind of wonky. Anyway, that wasn't all I spent my money on. I also bought this, which is a reading pillow. It's from Bookstore, which I feel like I have seen on Instagram, so you've probably seen it on Instagram. And I was debating between patterns because I was drawn to this, but also realistic that I would get it dirty. And then they were like, but they can be unzipped and washed. And I was like, sold. I am convinced, having not actually used this yet, because the day after I bought it, I had to run home for a family emergency, that it's going to change my life. I have really bad posture. I didn't know if you knew that. You could probably tell just from the way I sit in videos where I just kind of slowly hunch over and lean closer and closer to the camera as I'm calling out all of my secrets now. This is what I get from an exhausted mind, or this is what you get from an exhausted mind. Anyway, it is pretty full, so it's not like you can just sit here, but I'm assuming you want to lean against something, and so it'll provide a little bit more support. So I'm convinced it's going to change my whole life. I don't know if it's going to, but I want to believe that it will. And I need something to believe in right now, and so I'm going to believe in this pillow. If you have one of these, I would love to hear your thoughts on it, how it's worked for you. Also, if you think that there are other reading accessories that will absolutely revolutionize my life, let me know, because I do love a good reading accessory. I was an early adopter to the e-reader after all, but I have not jumped on all of the e-reader accessories that have popped up in the last couple of years. But this seems like it will be much cheaper than a massage therapy appointment. So I'm hoping that works. And I'm gonna put that somewhere where it's not just awkwardly in the corner. So I also got, as previously discussed, my tote bag, which we mentioned is just full mostly of promo goodies from authors, which I think is a super smart idea. I don't know if they're like leftovers, if they're things that authors provided specifically for Bookstore Romance Day. I'm not sure, but I thought it was a really nice touch, especially in relation to fostering community in the way that the last chapter does foster community, like I said, specifically or especially with the indie bookstore romance community. Indie romance community, not indie, you know what I mean. Maybe. Do I know what I mean? These stickers actually are reminding me that there were some really cute stickers that they had in, they have such good like merch stuff at that store. I had to restrain myself, but my favorite green crew neck sweater that I wear in a lot of lives is from the last chapter, and they have lots of really cute stickers and candles and cups, and this time I saw they had a little bowl of annotating supplies, which is smart. I've also bought a lot of like book covers from them, you know, the ones that you can like put your book in and slip in your bag. I think Bookhaul has those as well. I was just prioritizing my neck. Anyway, I'm so sorry. This is unhinged. Anyway, they had annotation stickers specifically for romance. Things like, "Aw," or like, "Love this," or I think more romance specific, but I didn't get a picture of it, and I'm kind of kicking myself now. I didn't get it because it was like $17 for a sheet of stickers, but I thought it was a really cute idea, and those are the kinds of like really cute things that they have there that I think are specifically targeted and really know its audience, or they really know their audience and their shoppers, and I really appreciate that. They have such cute merch. So if you have not been in there, you should check it out. Not only for the books, but also for the merch. Now, I will say in terms of freebies, and I haven't been to a book conference or a reader conference since Book Expo in 2016, so I guess I don't really know what is hot in terms of giving to readers. I love bookmarks, clearly. I don't know how I feel about stickers. particularly from series I have not read yet. So if you're an author producing stickers to market your series, I don't know if that encourages me to read the book, or I know that personally it doesn't encourage me to read the book. I'm not saying that it doesn't for others. I'm very interested to hear if it does for you, is why I'm bringing it up. Because for me, I see it and I think about how expensive it must be to print those stickers, and if they are specific to the book, or if it's like references, inside references, I feel less inclined. I don't, what do I do with it? Like, even I do love, I will admit, the last chapter stickers that they threw in. They threw in a lot of stickers, but at the same time, like, I don't really know what I'm gonna do with them, but I do know what I'm gonna do with a bunch of bookmarks, and I'm gonna put them in my books. Now, some of these have art from the books that are clearly from like dark romance that maybe I don't want to see every time I open my book, but that's just me personally, and I'm excited for the people who are excited about those series. I really love the little bookmark that they made, especially, I don't know if it's showing up, for Bookstore Romance Day or Romance Bookstore Day. Clearly I'm not the only one that has some uncertainty there, but I think that this is so cute, and I think they made a sticker version of this as well, which I could see the sticker version of this going on my reading journal for sure. And then my other favorite little thing that they threw in here was this little tea, and it's Morally Gray tea. It's a Morally Gray tea sachet, and it seems to be a whole company that does cliche teas, and I'm gonna have to look them up because I find that hilarious. I love that. So let's see what other teas. This is a genius idea. This is why you throw it in the bag, because then you get people like me going, what other teas do they have? Let's find out together. They have Grumpy Sunshine Tea. Oh no, go back. Slow Burn, Morally Gray, Meet Cute, One Bed, Enemies to Lovers. That's really cute. And I like that they have the little single-use sachets. And, we all know a good gray tea. So that's just clever, and I appreciate just clever. So, with that being said, here we are. That was chaotic. I'm sorry. And not, all at once. But thank you for hanging out with me. Someday I will master a real vlog for you all. The thing is, I'm gonna be real with you. One, I struggle with filming in public. I'm working to get better at that to whatever extent, because I really do value people's privacy. And this isn't a commentary on other people that blog. These are just my own hang-ups that I'm kind of word vomiting to you in this moment. But additionally, like, I live in an old apartment. My space isn't super aesthetic. That's not really the apartment's fault, other than not being able to hang things on the walls. That's just me not being an interior decorator, potentially. But, like, I don't feel like my space is as cute as many others who show their space. So I do feel like when I vlog or attempt anything that resembles a vlog, it usually ends up being me sitting on this couch yet again. So thank you to all who return week after week to hear me babble on this couch. I really appreciate you. I really want to hear about what you got up to on Romance Bookstore Day, what you picked up, what you're looking forward to. Any romance audiobooks. I listen to a lot of my romance as well. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I was listening to The Truth According to Ember. Spoiler alert, I am still listening to The Truth According to Ember because I got basically no reading done over the last week. So let me know what you're listening to or what has brought you a lot of joy. And I don't know, it seems silly, but just thinking about audiobooks and kind of connecting them to my grandma in some ways. And I'm very lucky in that, one, that I've been so close and so loved and have had the opportunity to love the people in my life so closely. I've been able to connect with both my grandma and my aunt, who I have lost within the last 2 years, about books, and we've read very different things. My grandma, as we talked about, which fits in with the theme of today in a weird way, and my aunt read a lot of like Sue Grafton and like mysteries, not full cozy, but like the thriller mystery spectrum. And so it just brings me a lot of joy thinking about that. And so yeah, I'm not gonna get too maudlin It is what it is. Oh, I did have a random thought. One of the few times I was on social media in the very slow country internet where I could very rarely even load a TikTok video if I were so inclined to watch TikTok was talking. I saw that the new Elizabeth Hoyt book, when we're talking about Anchors of Romance, is announced for December, which is very exciting. Now, I feel like this has been in kind of limbo in a similar way to how the latest Tessa Dare that is still in limbo was. So I'm very interested. I have not been following that closely enough. I also have skipped around in the Maiden Lane series. I have not read the entirety of Maiden Lane, and I really need to go back and reread. I remember loving Maiden Lane. So maybe that would be a project for me, as if I have no other projects. Anyway, let me know what you're excited about, what you picked up, what Bookstore Romance Day looks like for you, what your stores did and got up to. But most importantly, as always, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Like and subscribe if you feel like it. Read something good. And yeah, you know the drill. Bye.